The first lesson arrived as a clock with teeth. I was Admiral Mara Kepler, and the clock was projected across the battered freighter's hull like a sunburned 1941 and falling. It came with the hegemony's ultimatum packet and a neatly packaged morality play. Surrender the convoy. Hand over the medical isotopes and seed stock bound for the Rim Refugia. Accept inspection, seizure, and humane relocation for all passengers. Or watch the blockade erase every ship that tried to run the line. We were a lean task group in a rust-brown system called Vespergate, and the Dominion's doctrine was simple enough to tattoo. I could taste the ion bite of the air scrubbers as the timer shaved off seconds and the deck thrummed under my boots. Packet is mirrored to the flotilla, Commander J. Lin said, voice steady. His console threw spiderweb glare across his cheekbones. They're amplifying the clock on public bands. Admiral, civilians can all see it. Make them hear this one, I said, fleet-wide. Ledger wakened in my inner ear with the gentle click of a disciplined mind. The fleet mind never raised its voice. It just opened doors. Net is yours. Admiral, it said. The tone was neutral, but I knew the hum beneath it. Coolant pumps drafting to compensate for a heat surge in our forward lattice. We were already warming. Convoy Vesper. This is Admiral Kepler, I said. You're not alone. We're going to teach by numbers tonight. Stay buttoned. Keep your radiation shutters down. And hold your lanes. No independent runs. The clock bled to 1903. Somewhere inside the freighter ring, a baby started to cry over an open channel, a thin mule-like static. I made myself breathe through the taste of metal. Mercy had to have teeth, or it got eaten. Admiral, Lieutenant Torres said from Tactical, a low voice shaped by 3 belts and 2 scars. Dominion Line has 9 cruisers, 32 pickets, and a mine net at 12 degrees starboard of the gate plane. Their doctrinal keywords are consistent open inspection corridor, then punish. Looks like they want to funnel us and burn any stragglers. Show me the funnel, I said. Vectors unfolded like ribbon. The corridor wasn't an open heart. It was a throat designed for choking. Their ultimatum doctrine wore a humanitarian face. But the math was murder accept their inspection, surrender the cargo, and they'd still cull anyone who didn't fit their quotas. Ledger, I said. How many seconds until the first civilian ship panics and jumps without permission? Stochastic estimate within 400 seconds. The AI answered quietly. Unless we insert a stabilizing event. Then we'll insert one, I said. Ops. Paint the lattice. Comms. Put the crew vignette up on the convoy band. The coolant hissed through the deck like rain. I smelled hot plastic as the anti-missile spines primed, and the hull's faint heartbeat increased to a pressure in the bones. Beginning chain broadcast, Ensign Okoye said, live slice from Convoy Vesper 4. A woman's face filled a split of my display, grease-streaked, hair braided back, eyes steady though the whites showed. Her name ticked in a caption bar, Kendra Sal, cargo chief, and the camera pull widened to show what she guarded. Cryo reels stacked like sleeping seeds, a boy strapped to a web seat, breathing mask fogging with each exhale. An old man with a paramedic patch, checking gauges with hands that didn't shake. Sal touched the boy's shoulder. We're staying tight, she said into a tinny mic. We're not breaking line. We'll wait for the signal. Her voice steadied the band. I let the moment sit like a palm on a fevered brow. Then I returned the fleet channel to my throat. Signal coming. Chief Sal, I said. Hold the line. We do not teach by fear, we teach by proof. The Dominion commander finally chose to speak. His hologram unfolded on the boundary of my tactical display, staged like a diplomat's silver pauldrons. A neck torque that meant he'd spent a season with a client species famous for collars. The timer hovered above his shoulder. Yatsud at 7 in 29 and shedding. "Admiral Kepler," he said, "I am Prefect Carden. You are outnumbered 3-1 and boxed by a lawful net. Place your warships in neutral attitude and release your convoy into my custody. This system is under hegemony protection. You have our word that your civilians will be processed with minimal hardship. Your corridor is a cul-de-sac with a furnace at the end." "Prefect," I said, "your word doesn't cool anything." He smiled. "It's an inspection corridor. Admiral, those who comply will be spared. Those who test us will learn consequences. Everyone learns." I said, "It matters who writes the lesson." The deck shuddered lightly as the mirror rigs extended along the task group, 12 ships canting in choreographed degrees. The mirror lattice was a poor term, nothing mystical, just a grid of tuned foil projectors and canted plates we'd been welding to our hulls for 3 supply cycles, a way to return what was given, angled through emptiness, measured by timing and heat. Dominion doctrine loved wide. Clean beams for intimidation. It made them feel like suns. Suns could be redirected. "Ready our decoys," I said. "Give them a mouth to aim at." "Ghost boys priming," Torres said. "Heat sinks charged. I can make them see a heavy cruiser where we don't have one." "Not yet." I said, "Make them see a choice." Through the viewport slit, the blockade ships were a necklace of slow, deliberate stars, the calm of a bully with time. Countdown 16:10. Okoye's voice cut in, soft but urgent. "Admiral, civilian chatter stabilized after the broadcast, but there's rumor of a shuttle trying to break away from Vesper 11. Patch me." "Wait, you don't get it," a man was saying, breathless. "My daughter, she needs the isotopes now. Now. Now." "Sir," I said into the open, "this is Admiral Kepler. Look at your child. Is she breathing? Is she conscious?" A ragged inhale. "She is." "But the doctors." "Hold. 10 minutes," I said. "Trust me with 10. Silence. Then a wet sound. He swallowed his fear. 10. "Thank you," I said, and cut the line. "Ledger," I said, "walk me through their missiles, not specs, behavior." Dominion fleet utilizes intimidation salvos with early lock-on beacons, Ledger said. They prefer to paint targets and herd. Their beams are gated by safety logic to avoid publicized civilian mass events. That logic will falter if we spoof their telemetry and make our hulls look uncrewed. "Ghost boy," I said, "dress them like coffins with no one in them." "Already costumed," Torres said. A shadow of humor there. "They'll chase the empty." Blocks of heat rolled through the hull as we charged the return rigs. Sweat popped under my hairline. I could hear the suit's heartbeat sync politely with mine, then fade as I set it to silent. "Prefect," I said, letting his hologram settle in the periphery. "You like clocks. I like ledgers. We're going to keep both. Arrogance is ugly in a smaller fleet," he said. "Cruelty is ugly in any—" I said. "Set your corridor aside. You misunderstand," Carden replied, teeth bright. "Compromise weakens policy. Policy is what ends wars. The corridor stands." Then he sent his first correction. A warning beam brushed the space between us. A clean white line that left an afterimage like mint smoke. It didn't touch any hull. Its purpose was the breath before a slap, and every civilian lens saw it. "Heat spike is within our reflect threshold," Torres said. "We can catch and give." Not yet, I said. We need him to commit. Clock at 14:48, Ledger said, unnecessarily. I could feel the number the way you feel a bruise. Civilians, I said on the open band. You'll see light. That's for us. Breathe through it. We've done the math. I caught Jaylin's eyes. He didn't nod. He never nodded, but the corner softened, just enough to let me know my restraint matched his. Turn the threat on its hinge until it faces home. We laid the first trap like a compliment. A formation shift, slight. Our ships rotated to show wider plates, like bared throats, and we eased toward the declared corridor by 3 degrees. On the scope, it read as compliance. Dominion pickets adjusted. Pleased to shepherd. Their doctrine was a script with 1 act consent or burn. When we moved as if consenting, they relaxed the coil of their net to guide us in. Torres, I said, seed the lateral minefield. Aye. Launching 10 countermines on cold gas. No signature bloom. His hands worked the board like a pianist who'd learned to play with burns. They'll look like dust until we whistle. Okoye, I said, put Kendra Sal back up. No audio, just her crew's hands moving. Keep that picture next to the public clock. The ultimatum ticked past 1350 in white digits that washed the edge of my console. Grease, old skin, a child's fog on a mask. Those were facts that Doctrine hated. They spoiled its perfect lines. Prefect, I said. Last offer. Turn off the clock. Let me inspect the convoy with you. Together, on a public tally. There is no together, Carden said. There is order. And the price of your order, I said. Who pays it? Name them. Our policy forbids individualization, he said, almost bored. It corrodes resolve. The mass benefits. Outliers are regrettable. Then we'll count aloud for you, I said. Admiral, Ledger murmured in my ear where no one else could hear. Our forward mirrors are reaching heat margin. Understood, I whispered. Sweat crawled behind my jaw. We stall 30 seconds more. Then we show him what a corridor looks like when it refuses to be a throat. The second correction came brighter. Dominion beams strobed, short and firm, at our ghost boys. We hadn't thrown them yet. We just let the prefect's fire see the promise of something to chase. Hull vibration rose. A muted warning. The ship's skin had opinions. Drop the coffins, I said. 12 ghost boys spilled into the dark, painted as crewless hulls, space black with the right scuffs. They slid to form a decoy lane deeper into the announced corridor. Dominion targeting logic bit like a shark with a taste for foam. Beacons lit on the empty, and beams warmed from clinical to hungry. Now, I said, whistle. Torres' fingers rippled. The countermines woke like sharks opening one eye. They weren't meant to wound. They were meant to flash. They fired short. Stupid flares. Just the right shape to mimic our emergency heat dumps. And the space around our real ships glittered with false vulnerability. The Dominion had to choose chase the uncrewed hulls or pounce on the bleeding ones. Their doctrine liked a third option, punish both, but their safety gates hated media storms. They split focus and so lost it. Angles, I said. Bring the lattice up. Mirror plates sang. The first heavy beam kissed our forward section and slid. Because we were not a wall. We were a curve. The return skimmed along the tuned plates of Ship 2 and Ship 3, brushed the phantom of Ship 4, and flicked into empty. Where our flares made the space look like a field of soft bodies, the Dominion's brilliance came back as confusion. Return efficiency at 28%, Torres said. We can climb to 34 with another 2 minutes. Clock at 12:10, Ledger said. Keep talking to me, I told the convoy, and my own voice surprised me with its gentleness. Tell me something small. What you smell. What you hear. Kendra Sal's feed showed a mechanic tearing a strip of cloth to wrap a valve handle so it wouldn't scorch the next hand. Someone handed the old paramedic a cup with both palms. The boy slept, and the mask fluttered like a tiny sail. Okoye piped in whispers that weren't words, just the texture of a crowded room pretending calm. Prefect. I said, "You are playing with optics. We are playing with math." Step away. He drew himself taller, as if the hologram answered spinal impulse. You can redirect a few beams. You cannot alter a doctrine by deflection. We set the conditions. You move inside them. Ledger, I said softly. And the AI understood. It opened a tight bloom of probabilities and showed me where to place my next refusal. Bring us 4 degrees high of plane, I ordered. Maintain the fiction of entering the corridor. Keep the decoys sweet. Then on mark, we reverse the throat. Jalen exhaled. You're going to invert an open guide into a closed pocket. I'm going to make the corridor honest, I said. If he loves it so much, he can spend it. Make them walk their own doctrine until they feel the bill. Civilian Vignette 2, Admiral Okoye asked. Breath a shade quick. Put the hospital barge on, I said. A new window bloomed. Inside it, 6 lines. No more, no less. Because every extra was a kind of theft. A nurse clipped a ration straw to a floating bag. She pinched her own nose to keep from tasting the bitterness and smiled at the patient anyway. An orderly anchored a gurney leg with his boot while he tugged a blanket straight. A child traced a finger along the glowing edge of a cartoon taped to the wall. The ink wrinkled where the tape bubbled. The engine hum turned the air into a cat purring against a shin. Someone coughed twice, small and embarrassed, and someone else patted their shoulder without looking up. Okoye cut the feed right there. The silence that followed was a held breath with edges. Mark, I said. Our task group rolled. A patient unfurling, and the mirror lattice changed its song. We'd been curving beams away, letting their pressure pass. Now we canted the plates to pull, not block, to gather the prefect's clean white lines and feed them along our tuned path like rain along gutters. Our decoys kept the Dominion focused on the corridor. The mirror path led not deeper into the funnel, but across its lip and back into the loose bite where the Dominion's pickets had relaxed. Their fire ate a hole in their own patrol pattern, a shallow bite, enough for a convoy snout. Convoy Vesper, I said, feeling a heat shimmer roll through the deck plates. See your opening. It is not a corridor they gifted you. It is a pocket we made. Go now. All together. No stragglers. Follow Ship 3-2's tail flare. God bless. Someone whispered, or maybe I imagined it. Dominion pickets are registering collision alarms, Torres said. They don't understand what they're seeing. They understand enough. J. Lynn murmured. They're angry. Clock at 10:55, Ledger said. The convoy moved like a school of scarred fish. 32 ships angled toward the bite in the line, thrusters whispering, heat budgets tight as clenched teeth. We fed them a little more shadow and took the radiance ourselves. Beams scraped our plates and hissed like iron in water. Heat warning on Ship 5. Ledger said in my jaw. Crew reporting burns to 3 technicians at Port Rig. Not catastrophic, Torres said quickly. We've got the range. I licked salt and said nothing for 2 heartbeats, because every word costs. Then, to fleet-wide 3 burns on 5. They're alive. We keep them that way by finishing. The prefect finally blinked the diplomat away. His next visage came with the eyes of a man who'd had his dinner plate touched. You are interfering with lawful inspection. Admiral, This is escalation. I will respond proportionally. Then you'll fit inside your own policy for once, I said. Proportion means you feel it. The Dominion tried to tighten their net. We widened space into softness and took their corrections on our plates, then bled the heat into the sinks and flung the rest across empty, where our mining flares imitated fragile breath. The mines we'd seeded earlier hiccuped brightness near the picket's sensors, and 2 of the Dominion's own drones swung hard to protect what they thought were us. Convoy through in 24 seconds, Ledger said, assuming we hold geometry. Hold it, I said. Admiral, Okoye breathed. I have the father from 11 back on the band. He's not speaking. He put the camera on his daughter so we could see her chest rise. Leave it, I said. Let it be a metronome. We do not forget who breathes are for. The first Dominion escalation volley came as spears instead of sheets. Picket captains scavenged autonomy where policy hadn't written it down and lanced at our plates, trying to shear a mirror off and catch a naked hull beneath. One spear clipped our starboard shoulder. The impact jolted a grunt out of me, the kind a fighter makes when someone lands a rib shot. Damage report, I said, already tasting ozone. Plate scored. Torres said, lattice still continuous. We lost 1 emitter on the edge. Clock at 9:42, Ledger said, the number felt like heat inside my shirt. Convoy Vesper, call your numbers, I said. 1 by 1 give voices. 4 through, 7 through, 9 through, 11 through. 11 through, the father's voice said last, and then a small delighted cough, and the sound of a grown person sobbing carefully so they didn't shake a sleeping child. Admiral, J. Lynn said so low, private. We're in their doctrine now. Time to show the cost. I nodded and kept my eyes on the throat we'd turned. Prefect Carden, I said to his absence, you have cut a pocket into your own picket. Your inspection is now a hazard of navigation. If you don't withdraw your outer left, you'll have to fire through your own drones to close the gap. He reappeared, jaw flexing. You will surrender your reflectors for confiscation. They constitute a deception device. We'll place our hardware on a public tally when you place your terms on one. I said, Ledger. Project the ledger. Across the convoy band, a simple list appeared. Ships, cargo classes, fuel budgets, injury tallies. It was not confession. It was accounting. Then another list beside it, the Dominion's assets in range, as best we could estimate from their emissions. I left blanks where we were unsure, because honesty has edges, and people can feel when they cut. Add a column for policy cost, I said. Not numbers. Names, if we have them. Details, if we don't. Names unavailable for Dominion crew, Ledger said. Then write this, I said, and Okoye typed as I spoke. Unknown picket captain in Sector Blue who chose to lance at a mirror while the hospital barge crossed. Unknown drone operator who steered into their own safety flare to protect an empty coffin. Unknown prefect who thought a clock could do the job of a conscience. The prefect's nostrils flared. You are performing theater. I'm doing math where people can see it, I said. Convoy is at 80% through, Ledger said. Hold geometry, I whispered. Hold. Brace the line. Let the pressure prove the shape. They tried to throw our balance. A Dominion cruiser spun a broadband jammer, the kind that made screens snow and stomachs lurch. The deck's hum fluttered and came back with a hitch, like a singer remembering a verse and almost forgetting it again. My inner ear swayed. If I looked at the viewport, the stars smeared, then snapped sharp. I didn't look. Counterjam on tight beam. Torres said. We can hold a thin wire through their noise. Okoye, I said. Thread that wire with something human. She knew what I meant. She patched the wire to Kendra Sal's camera one more time. The boy's mask had clouded with sleep. The old paramedic had leaned his head against a bulkhead where the metal was cool. Someone had drawn a circle on the deck with grease pencil and written a joke around it. I couldn't read it, but I could see the tilt of the letters. And that tilt said we were not done yet. Admiral, Ledger said. Soft. A minor change in their beam gating. They're loosening. Because they smell blood, J. Lin said. Because they're embarrassed, I said. Their doctrine tells them to punish deviation, and we're making their punishments look sloppy. Convoy at 94%. Ledger said, now. I said, bend the mirror path one more notch. Make the last 6 ships look like 12, then fold them behind our plate like birds behind a wing. We did it. The lattice purred, and the hull grew hot enough to make my gums ache. The final ship slipped through the bite we'd carved, and the Dominion's beams combed empty blue like fingers looking for hair that was no longer there. Convoy Vesper, I said, and didn't realize until I heard the rasp that I'd shouted, burn for the far limit. No transponder chatter until you're cold and dark. We'll join you on the outbound shadow. Voices answered, some crisp, some breaking, and then the band filled with the quiet of people who didn't dare to celebrate where celebration could look like taunting. Clock at 8:03, Ledger said. Prefect. I said, your corridor is now a hazard you created. You can keep the clock if you enjoy the sound, but the band has counted something else. He bared his teeth in something that pretended to be a smile. You have achieved a small tactical novelty. You will not repeat it, and you have incurred a cost. State it, I said. Your forward lattice is heat-stressed. Your technicians are burned. You are responsible for their injuries. You could have complied. You chose otherwise. Cost accepted. I said, we pay our own bills. I let myself see Ship 5 for a Pulse 3 techs with red forearms and grins they couldn't quite manage. We do not ask our victims to pay for their own rescue. He leaned closer. Your mercy will thin you. Maybe, I said, but thinning isn't the same as hollowing out. Set the open door where their closed fist can see it. We needed to leave before they adapted. But you can't teach if you vanish without leaving homework. I clicked to private. J. Find me a corridor that's not a throat. One they could accept without losing face. He eyed the map. If they peel their left 3 pickets and swing the mine net by 7 degrees, there's a navigable lane that avoids the hospital barge's wake. Send it to the prefect. I said, no, label it as an option, not a demand. You're negotiating with a clock. Torres muttered. I'm showing him a way to stop the clock without admitting why. I said, Ledger, note this. In case we're not here next time, recording. Ledger said. And Admiral crew morale uptick at 14% after convoy call-out. The prefect read the corridor suggestion and went still. I could smell the warm skins of my crew, salt and polymer, and the faint lemon from the wipes in the ready locker. Every sense said we'd pulled a tiger's whisker. Every sense also said this was the right fur to ruffle. I will not accept operational advice from a hostile. He said, it's not advice. I said, it's geometry. Your ledger, he said, spitting the word like a seed, does not apply here. We'll see, I said. He cut the channel. The public clock slid down past 6:30 and kept bleeding. Admiral, Ledger said, if we wait, we risk losing the temperature margin on Ship 2's starboard mirrors. We don't wait, I said. We move to the outbound shadow. Maintain tight beam to the convoy. Keep the public tally up. If the prefect shifts his net toward the safer corridor, we record it. If he doesn't, we record that instead. We're going to show everyone how the doctrine spends lives, Jay-Lin murmured. We'll spend ink first, I said, and heat, and sweat, and a little skin. You can't hide the bill if we read it aloud. We slid for the outbound, engines at whisper, wasting minimal fuel because tomorrow always asks for some. The Dominion pursued with 2 pickets and a cruiser captain who thought he could cut us free of our lattice and bite. He was wrong. We were not a piece to carve. We were a system, and systems are harder to eat than symbols. Admiral, Okoye said, I've got a sideband message. It's not Dominion. It's a syndicate runner in the shadow. They're offering a back door out for the convoy. Fee-based. Decline, I said without looking, and add it to the ledger as a scavenger offer. Be precise. Don't dress it as villainy. Just count it. Count it, she said, and her mouth twitched. The hospital barge sent one more line, a picture of a cooling unit with a new towel draped over it like a blessing. I let myself feel it for the length of an inhale, then blew it out slow. A tremor ran through the deck. Cruiser Lansing, Torres said, testing our edge. Show them the edge is wider than it looks. I said, small return, nothing flashy. We sent their spear tip sideways, and it skated without applause. Their doctrine loved applause. The lack hurt. Admiral, Ledger said, Dominion net is adjusting. How Jay-Lin said, 7-degree swing on their minefield. Ledger said, 3 left pickets peeling. Prefect is adopting your safe corridor. Record it, I said. Science put a line under it. When offered a better geometry, Prefect Carden accepted after public accounting began. That is the whole entry. No insult. You're giving him a way to claim prudence, Jay-Lin said. I'm giving the next prefect a documented path, not to be cruel, I said. Midship heat bled at last into the night. My shoulder unclenched for the first time since the timer started. This fleet teaches by numbers and remembers by ledgers, never by callers. We weren't done. We had to shepherd the convoy into the dark of the outbound and then vanish our shapes. And there would be another trap beyond this one, because power repeats itself until someone breaks its mirror. But the first set piece had closed with more lives breathing than not. That was enough to move to the next problem without lying to ourselves about what victory meant. Admiral, Ledger said, voice as even as ever. Recommend we rotate technicians on Ship 5 to the Coolside Bay. Burns are blistering but superficial. Crew has already improvised gel packs. The AI paused in a way that sounded like humility, but was just circuitry making room for human preference. They are requesting to remain on duty. Deny, I said, and made it sound kind instead of punitive. They can monitor from the bay. Someone else will take the heat for a while. Relief team is already in motion, Ledger said. Noted maintenance chief left the gel packs and walked out with bare hands to pat the rig. Add 3 lines to today's account, I said. 1 for the burns we accepted. 1 for the corridor shift we induced. 1 for the father who counted breaths with us. Okoye's throat worked. Added. Admiral, Torres said, reading a wideband declaration from Prefect Sheridan. He's putting a statement onto the public band. The hegemony has elected to extend a courtesy corridor for humanitarian passage in Vesper Gate. Any attempt to exploit this for military advantage will be punished. Print it, I said. Let him brag. Put the bracketed note under it, initiated after convoy tally showed risk. No adjective on risk, just the word. We'll get called propagandists, Jay-Lin said. Only by people who don't like sums, I said. Open the book in the light and let them flinch. We settled into the outbound shadow and joined the convoy at the edge, where our wake could hide their smaller stutters. The heat shimmer fell off the plates with a sigh, and the smell in the bridge returned to plastic and skin and coffee at the bottom of a cold cup. Set piece 1 complete, I said, but only into myself. Set piece 1 complete, Ledger echoed, but only because it recorded everything, and sometimes my phrases became its filing. Next task, ensure no Dominion tracer tags ride our exhaust. Torres, I said, scrub the plume. I want clean drift. Okoye, prepare a little theater for those who watch from safe rooms, a crew vignette from the mess. 12 lines. Then we go dark for 2 hours. Mess cam up, Okoye said. A cook slid a tray onto a table and thumbed a bruise on a pear until it changed color. Someone stirred something brown and too thin, then laughed at their own hunger and added another scoop of powder. A junior officer poured coffee and set the cup near the hand of a sleeping tech, missing their fingers by a centimeter and leaving the cup anyway. 2 Marines arm wrestled with foreheads pressed together, sweat making their sleeves cling, grinning like idiots because they had found 50 seconds with nothing to do but be strong. A prayer happened in the corner. No words. Just a hand on a shoulder and a head bowed long enough to be seen. The camera caught the edge of a burn, dressing on a wrist. The skin around it was angry and the tape was neat. Someone clanged a spoon against a pipe to announce a joke and forgot to tell it. Okoye cut the feed before the punchline that never came. It didn't need one. Admiral, Ledger said, a private request from Prefect Carden. I raised an eyebrow. Private. He asks if we will remove the public ledger if he maintains the courtesy corridor for 48 hours. Ledger said. He frames it as a goodwill trade. Decline, nah. I said, we don't negotiate with erasure, but offer this: we will add a line stating that the prefect kept his word for 48 hours. If he does. Transmitting, Ledger said. Admiral, J. Lin said softly, this is the moment where doctrine breaks or hardens. I know, I said. I can feel the crack. The hull hummed like a throat ready to sing again. The convoy's tails blinked once, the way birds reassure each other at dusk. The clock on the band had dimmed, but I still saw it behind my eyes, and I knew the prefect saw something else, a mirror that wouldn't look away even when it showed him his own hands. The second lesson wasn't a shout, it was a measure. We rode the outbound dark until the heat fell fully from our plates and the taste of scorched polymer left the air. The convoy drifted in our lee with transponders sleeping, 1 heartbeat at a time. I loosened the neck seal and let cool. Filtered wind touched damp skin. The deck's hum had settled low, like a ship purring after the run. I could feel the faint shiver of the gyros through my boots and the sweet, medicinal breath from a patch someone opened too fast. Status of the corridor, I asked. Maintained, Ledger said. Prefect Carden's pickets hold the safer lane. No new countdown issued. He's nursing pride, J. Lin said. Pride is a muscle. It tears and regrows. We'll give it something better to do, I said. Plot a course to Skell Reach. That's where his doctrine will try to rebound. Transit in 6 hours on minimum burn, Torres said. Fuel budgets remain conservative. We lost 2% beyond plan cooling the lattice. Add it to the book, I said. Ink before steel. We write in light where they hid in shadow. Before we moved, we let the crew breathe together. Okoye lifted her camera to the maintenance bay. 12 lines only, because we keep promises even about small things. A tech with a bandaged arm used their elbow to nudge a toolbox closed. Someone peeled the backing off a fresh dressing and laughed when it stuck to their thumb. Another pair of hands freed it without comment. The coolant pump clicked as it cycled, a steady tick like a metronome under the hum. A junior sailor wiped scored metal filings from the grate and blew a gray breath that tasted like old coins. A pair of boots sat by a vent with socks rolled into them, like sleeping snails. Someone set 2 pairs on a crate and pressed a thumb to each until the bruises came up, testing the world's softness before trusting their teeth. "Cut," I said softly. And Okoye did. "Plan-changing escalations ahead," J. Lin said, studying the 3-dimensional net of the next system. "Skell Reach isn't empty. It's a junction with a refinery moon and 3 relay stations. He'll try to turn our public ledger against us by populating those relays with his own clocks. Then we turn the clocks into mirrors," I said. "We'll teach by numbers again. But this time, we make the arithmetic inevitable, turn the corridor into their own choice." 6 hours later, the cabin lights ghosted to half, and the stars shifted into Skell's sparse geometry. The relay trio blinked like cold eyes. I smelled lemon from the wipes again. Someone nervous. Someone neat. The refinery's waste plumes etched faint threads across the plane, and a static buzz tickled my palms where they rested on the rail. "Dominion greeting," Okoye announced. "Open band." The new ultimatum bloomed in perfect script, accompanied by a sound that wanted to be a drum beat and ended up a cough. 40 minutes. Public. To surrender contraband and submit to corrective scans. The courtesy corridor was still there, the timer perched above it like a knife taped to a gift. "I am Prefect Cairden," the voice said. "Now, without the diplomat's jewelry, you are repeat offenders. Your reflectors transform inspection into hazard. Withdraw to the safe orbit of Relay 2. I will dismantle your devices and issue receipts." "Receipts," Torres muttered. He learned a word. "Then he can learn a balance," I said. "Ledger. Bring up Skell's public channels. Can we reach the local miners' coopy?" "Yeah," Ledger said. "Their board chair is one Tarsavel. She is on shift. She is also angry. Open a narrow, then," I said, "and ask for 12 lines from their dock." The coop answered with a feed that felt like grit between teeth. A winch squealed and a chain sang a rough harmony. A woman with a cracked visor seal dabbed resin with careful fingers, while her partner held a light that flickered with a decided stutter. A child's drawing was taped above a bulkhead switch, a fat moon with a face, and 6 lopsided stars, each with a name scrawled under it. A thermos clunked against a metal rail and steamed long enough to fog the cam. A man in a brown cap wiped his mouth with the back of his wrist and kept working because stopping was expensive. Dust fell across the frame like old snow. "We're not leaving you in his math," I said onto a band where they could hear, "but we will make him read it aloud." "Admiral," Ledger murmured in my ear. "Prefect Cairden is vectoring 2 cruisers to bracket the refinery. He is also spinning the relays to act as public mirrors for his countdown clocks. He means to show inevitability." "Spin them back," I said. "Not their housings, their stories." "Explain," Ledger said, though it already had 50 answers. "We place our ledger onto his mirrors," I said. "Public. Stark. We'll leave no room under their glass for anything but totals. Count what they call inevitable, then show its source." We seeded ledger beacons like chalk marks, tuned pings that any public receiver would display as a simple table. We didn't bribe the relays, we just used their design. Any packet flagged humanitarian overlay had to host tally block for legal reasons Cairden's own lawyers had written. His doctrine loved law when it bent for him. It would bend for us, used too. Because we brought receipts. "Beacons away," Torres said. "They're thin. No flash. They'll ride with his broadcast. Good, I said. Now we need a pocket to move people if he makes the refinery a bargaining chip. Something bigger than a hull. The miners' habs can't burn fast. Jay-Lin pinched the map until it folded like paper. There's an old ore plume path that cuts the plain. If we can persuade the refinery to vent at a specific angle, we can make a low-density corridor. It'll look dirty, but a convoy can drift it unseen. The cost is time, fuel, and a heat bloom on the refinery's face. Ask Tarsavel, I said. Her people get to choose their brews. She'll say yes if the ledger says why, Okoye murmured. Then keep it big and clean, I said. 1 table, 3 columns. We will not hide the reasons we ask for pain. Carradin's voice returned. Grand and brittle. He poured doctrine like syrup. We let it coat our beacons and set. The relays had to display the humanitarian table. It appeared bottom right, quiet as a whisper and twice as sticky. Column 1, Dominion actions. Column 2, projected human cost, local. Column 3, mitigation if adopted. Line entries ticked in cruiser bracket on refinery. An oxygen reduction in Hab C within 40 minutes. Suspend bracket. Maintain corridor. Relay spin with countdown. Panic-induced shuttle losses. Replace clock with cooperative audit. Seizure of reflectors. Loss of convoy. Cover for medical shipment. Joint inspection with neutral witness. He tried to erase the table. The relays printed attempted redaction with a timestamp, because legal code is a mean dog that bites everyone if you let it. The miners started sharing screenshots. They circled numbers with grease-black fingers. Admiral, Ledger said, Dominion cruiser Beta is warming lances. Their doctrine has reached its embarrassment threshold. We'll get our... I said, every teacher catches chalk dust. Power isn't brighter, it's only louder. Civilian vignette before we shift, I said. The refinery mess. A spoon rattled in a chipped bowl. Someone unfolded a paper napkin and smoothed it on their thigh, then refolded it when a friend arrived and split their meal with them, spoon for spoon. The air shimmered with fried oil and the plastic tang of safety masks pulled down to drink. A glove sat uselessly on a pipe, fingers curled in a rubbery rest. A battered music player leaked a tune so slow it could have been a lullaby, unless you were listening to its stubbornness. A hand reached out and took another hand. Squeezed. Released. Went back to work. Okoye, I said. Cut. Tarsa. On open band, we need your vent. Now. You'll pay for scorched seals. Tarsa Vel said, voice fierce with the knowledge that she didn't have many chips to bargain with. And you'll add a line for my crew's burns if the angle's wrong. We'll write it before it happens, I said. You're part of the sum. Then take it, she said. And don't pretend the smell won't stick. The refinery vented in a deliberate spit. The plume drew a ribbon of brown into blue, a path marked by filth and math. Our convoy turned their faces to it like people recognizing home in a dirty alley, and we eased along its edge, keeping the heat signature low enough to taste cold metal on the tongue. Cruiser Beta Lansing Torres snapped. They're testing the refinery skin. Return minimal, I said. Only enough to bump. No scorch. We fed the spear into the plate of Relay 2 with a gentle push, just enough to make it ring. The relay published the jolt as an infrastructure warning. The code said it must, and the table put a new line beside it. Escalation risking relay, integrity, Fury regional comms blackout, adopt cooperative audit. People watched the lines appear and asked questions with their mouths closed because words are expensive in places like this. Eyes did the work. Clock at 23:37 Ledger said. New geometry, Jay-Lin said. Dominion Cruiser Gamma is falling behind the refinery instead of flanking. They're going to herd us toward the junction where the plume thins. Then we'll thicken it. I said, Torres, seed microflares along the path. Make them look like garbage heat. That's a lot of little burns. He said, we'll pay in signature. We'll pay, I said. Add it to the book. Microflares, 2% fuel loss. Increased detect risk if someone knows what to smell. Added, Ledger said. And Admiral Crew on Ship 6 reports a pressure seal squeal. It's small. They want to keep driving and fix it with their knees. Deny, I said. Stop. Reseat. Foam it. We pass clean or not at all. We do not trade lives for minutes. Gamma made its move. The lance came low and mean, designed to shear our aft mirror and turn us into the naked thing he wanted to punish. Our plate caught most. The rest scraped along a rib and popped a hatch seal on Corvette 2. The deck lurched, and the air went thin enough to sing. Alarms chittered like angry birds. Breach in compartment C, Ledger said, voice steady. Volume small. 2 crew with contusions. 1 with a broken radius. All alive. Foam engaged. I steadied my own breath against the hiss in the bone. Ship 2. Report. Foam holding, the Corvette captain said, voice tight. We're ugly and sealed. Medic says the arm will set fine. Add 3 line, I said. Breach, bruises, broken bone. Put it on the ledger where everyone can see. Dominion Cruiser Beta is rotating to punish the Corvette, Torres said. Throw a coffin, I said. Let him chase the empty. We cast a ghost buoy painted as a buckled Corvette and let it spit a sad little heat song. Beta bit, because doctrine loves symbols more than bodies. The real Corvette slid under our plate like a hand under a cloak. Admiral, Okoye said, miners coop channel lighting with messages. They're counting with us. They're adding jokes. Tarsavel has posted an old proverb, if a book is closed. It's not a book, it's a brick. Write one back, I said. Short. We're opening books, not throwing them. Sent, she said, shoulders easing. Tear up their stage directions with quiet geometry. We made Skell reach a classroom. Every Dominion move wrote itself into the humanitarian table, whether Carden liked it or not. He tried to flood the relays with fireworks, louder clocks, brighter warnings. The old opera. The relays dutifully displayed those, too, in smaller boxes. The beacons we'd seeded stayed pinned like thumbtacks through the page. Admiral, Ledger said, Prefect Carden is seizing Relay 3. Marines inbound. He will attempt to close the public table at the source. Then we move the source, I said. Public table goes system-wide. Any receiver becomes a mirror, not pretty, not permanent, but messy enough for a day. We can brood it. Torres said, broadcast layer piggyback. No elegance. People will get flicker. Flicker is fine, I said. Everyone will associate flicker with him reaching for the plug. Okoye bit her lip. Civilian vignette before the move. Give me the relay break room, I said. A security officer in a rumpled uniform took off their cap and combed their hair with their fingers. Then put the cap back on as if that changed anything. A clock on the wall ticked 1 second fast. Irritating and precise. Someone's lunch sat open. Noodles going dry and hard at the edges. A mug said, World's Best Ant in chipped blue letters. A plant in a coffee tin drooped toward a slit of light and touched the window with the tip of one leaf. Voices echoed down the hall. Boots on tile. Go, I said. Torres slammed the piggyback into place. The table multiplied. Phones in pockets lit. Old consoles blinked contentious truths. The miners in HFY started trading numbers like talismans. The refinery mess watched the entry seizure of Relay 3 pop into the cost column as local comms loss. Medical coordination delay. Someone in that room clanged a spoon against a pipe again. And this time, the joke landed. If the clock shouts and nobody watches. Is it still loud? Laughter bubbled, thin and real. Clock at 15:04, Ledger said. Carden is improvising, J. Lynn said. He's moving a bulk tanker into position to protect the refinery. The tanker's registry says it's bonded for medical oxygen. If he parks it over the vent, he controls the path. He puts his own logistics at risk to hold face, I said. That's our flip, Admiral, Torres said, caught between respect and worry. If we make him fire near his tanker, any mistake rips his halo. We won't make him fire, I said. We'll make him choose, and we'll make the choice public. Put the cost where his doctrine hides the price. We built an inside-out kill box without killing. The miner's vent and our microflares made a ribbon. The tanker became a plug if it moved across it. We extended the mirror lattice into a wide, thin web, power-intensive, unforgiving of sloppiness. Its geometry wasn't meant to return beams, but to fold signals. We angled the tanker's own safety scanners back through our web and into the public table. If Carden placed it, the table would show risk to bonded oxygen shipment high if countdown maintained. If he didn't, the table would show risk to miners' oxygen high if countdown maintained. Mirrors of a kind, but not the kind he'd trained on. Builders ready, Torres said. It will bake us. We'll pay in heat. We pay. I said. Rotate crews every 90 seconds. Burn gel at the ready. Civilian vignette, Okoye whispered, to put weight on the scale. The shuttle queue at the miners' school, I said. A row of small backpacks bumped softly against a wall. A teacher traced a finger along a child's helmet visor to wipe a circle of fog so their eyes could peer out. The PA hissed twice before a calm voice said the next group would go soon. A child stamped a boot and liked the hollow thump it made. Someone's gloves made that squeak when rubber rubs rubber. A red sticker with a smiling star peeled at the edges. A little hand smoothed it back down. Okoye cut the feed and swallowed. Ready, I said. Ledger, prime the tanker scan fold. Primed, Ledger said. Admiral Prefect Carden is on private band. I opened it. You're threatening a bonded ship, he said, quiet in the way furious men are when they know they've left the stage and entered a room. No, I said. Your countdown threatens both your bonded ship and the miner's lungs. Our table will show either entry. You decide which line appears. Then the system will learn whose policy sets the price. You cannot make me pay for mercy, he said. You already made them pay for obedience, I said. Do your sums. The tanker moved. He could have parked it over the vent and claimed protection. He slid it away. An inch, a foot, a span, until the scan fold read, mitigation. The table lit tanker redeployed to reduce risk. Record it, I said. No adjective. Then add countdown remains. Risk persists. We do not praise a lesser harm as good. He pushed something else instead. Marines in dark suits took Relay 3, stripped its humanitarian module, and fed a fresh clock into the sky. The relay went dull at the edges. The table should have vanished in that sector, but the piggyback hummed on with stubborn grace. Admiral, Ledger said, we can hold this for 12 minutes before our boards warp. 12 is time to chew. I said, convoy, drift the ribbon. HFY, call your roll. Voices came like beads on a wire. Here, Here. 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 A cough. Here. Someone laughed too loud and clapped a hand over their mouth. Here. Dominion cruisers aligning. Torres said, They're forming an open corridor again. Admiral, this one is clean. No choke at the end. Because everyone's watching. Jay-Lin said, He's giving a pretty lane and putting a clock over it so he can close it if nobody looks. I said, Okoye, keep them looking. Admiral, Ledger said, Temperature warning on Ship 3's aft plate. Rotate. I said, Hey, swap to Ship 7. If anyone's hands shake. They step back. They're all shaking, Torres said. A grin behind it that wasn't humor so much as courage. But the work's still straight. Find the quiet in the noise and hammer it. We were 3 minutes from Warp Shadow when Carradine tried his last doctrine trick. He offered a private deal. Surrender your reflectors, he said on a narrow band we'd promised never to quote, but would always remember. And I will escort the convoy myself. I will publish that gesture. You will be unburdened of moral debt. We don't export our spine, I said, and closed him out. Admiral, Okoye said, voice gone thin. I have Tarsa Vel asking for a line in the ledger. Refinery burns on request of fleet. She wants it printed now, not later. Print it, I said, with a footnote. Compensation pledged by fleet, not Dominion. Added, Ledger said. Clock at SO351. Do they need us to stay longer? Jay-Lin asked. They need us to show our backs. I said, leaving is a lesson. 2. Admiral, Torres said. One last ledger entry from the miners. It's a recipe for stew. Fuel efficient. Serves 10. Pin it, I said, and felt the knot under my sternum loosen. Now light the shadow. Push the door and let the room breathe. We warped out on a soft burn that tasted like cold iron and old coffee. The convoy fell with us, tucked low, silent enough that the ear notices its own blood. The relay clock spun behind, large and lonely. The table stayed up. The piggybacks dropped as designed when we left, because there's a difference between teaching and colonizing. Damage summary, Ledger said as the stars smeared and settled. 1 minor breach, 1 broken radius, 18 blister burns, all superficial, 2% unplanned fuel loss. Lattice stress at 61%. We need true downtime within 20 hours. We'll take it, I said. Put the list at the top of the book. And under it, write miners oxygen preserved, tanker preserved, corridor geometry improved, public tally adopted by the local net. There's more, Okoye said. A message tagged legal from Hegemony Civil Prudence Board. They want to discuss countdown doctrine in hearing. They cite Skell Ledger anomaly as cause. I let myself smile where no one could see it. Pin that for after sleep, I said. But put one clean line now. Public inquiry opened. The only good clock is one that can be questioned. We angled toward a cold pocket called Naros Verge to hide and mend, but the hegemony wasn't going to wait. Carradine's doctrine wasn't a man. It was a scaffold, and we'd cracked a rung. When things break at the right point, gravity finishes the job. Still, scaffolds fall on people. We prepared for the board's teeth. Civilian vignette, I said. Because compassion is a muscle you exercise or lose. Our own infirmary. A medic squeezed foam into a splint until it hissed like a tired snake. The broken-arm crewman winced and then stared at the ceiling vents because the light there was soft. Someone tore medical tape with their teeth and apologized around it. The room smelled like antiseptic and warmed dust. A cup of water sweated onto a tray, and left a ring that would be wiped by a hand we wouldn't see. The ship's heartbeat moved through the floor and up through the cot. A pulse under another pulse. "Cut," I said. "Let them sleep." Rest lasted exactly long enough for the Prudence Board to convene with Skell's feed as a backdrop. They invited the miner's coop chair, a convoy captain, and unusually, the prefect. We didn't tune to plead, we tuned to count. "Prefect Cairden," the board chair said, voice thin, face lit by too much relay blue. "Why did you maintain a countdown when mitigation was presented and adopted in part?" He tried theater. "We responded with ledger entries, times, actions, consequences." Tarsavel translated sums into breath. "Board notes ledger anomaly normalization," the chair said. "We instruct the future inspections at junctions require cooperative audits with named mitigation columns. Unilateral countdown clocks without public accounting are suspended within the Protectorate for 90 days pending review." Okoye's shoulders fell like a bridge settling onto its pilings. "Admiral," Ledger said quietly, "this constitutes a precedent." "Add 2 lines," I said. "Countdown doctrine suspended 90 days where board has reach, and cooperative audit mandated at junctions." No flourish. He didn't like it. He wouldn't forget. But his stage had lost one wall, and the public could see backstage. He could still punish where the board didn't reach. We would have to be there again and again until the policy was a story people remembered as a mistake. The glass doesn't lie when every hand holds it. He came once more, lean and tired in the eyes, in a private channel that Ledger flagged as human. "Your ledger makes my captains hesitate," Cairden said. "Hesitation in war kills." "Your clock made miners decide whether to breathe now or later," I said. "Your captains can live with a breath and a number." "You're building a religion of receipts," he said. "No," I said. "We're building a habit. Religions demand knees. Habits demand practice. The board has bought your cleverness for a quarter cycle," he said. After that, I said, "We'll still be here." He closed us out with the gentleness of a man placing a cup on a quiet table. We coasted into Naro's verge with plates cooling and a silence you could sit inside like a room. Crew dozed in chairs, in corners, in hallways where the floor remembered their shape. I took my coffee black and bitter because sweetness felt like theft. The hull's vibration was a lullaby for anyone who liked machines more than people. I like both. They're both honest when you listen right. "Admiral," Ledger said, "the father from Vesper 11 has sent a small file. Would you like to open it?" "Yes," I said. A video played. 12 seconds. A child in a mask sat up, peeled it off, and frowned at the taste, then laughed at their own face. The laugh sounded like a clock startles when someone stops it. "Add 1 line," I said. No numbers, just there was laughter. "We carry quiet proofs farther than any banner." The board hearing accelerated change. The Gemini's junior prefects started arriving at junctions with cooperative audit forms printed fresh. Some tried to fake columns. The tables still caught them. The miners traded recipes and proverbs under the ledger as if it were a morning paper. Our technicians developed blisters where routine became ritual. 2 weeks later, doctrine tried to resurrect itself in a place called Blackfold. Different prefect, same clock. We were late by 7 minutes. And a plate. It should have gone wrong. It went hard instead. Which is different? We spun a system-scale flip that scraped the paint from our courage. Blackfold's open corridor was a long gleam between 2 dustbands. The ultimatum was a drumbeat, bigger and cleaner than Skell. The local station's administrator, a woman named Marette Jo, had set up a paging board for evacuation and ran it with a voice like silk over stone. We arrived at the edge with 3 ships down a lattice and 2 replacing plates that still smelled like the forge. "Admiral," Torres said, "Dominion doctrine has learned. They've segmented their beams and staggered their timing. Our mirror won't fold signals as clean." "Then we flip the kill box inside out," I said, "not with light, with silence." We built a shadow lattice, a ring of decoy dark, where Dominion sensors would read emptiness with confidence. It meant we had to advertise everything else, including our own throats. It meant trusting our crews to ride a blackout with fingers on hot metal. It meant that when Carden's successor tried to herd the convoy into a bright, safe throat, they fell toward the dark gap we'd carved without heat. He realized late. His safety gates balked at firing into registered emptiness. His captains hesitated. The board's hearing replayed in their heads and in their promotions. The convoy slid through the hole we'd made with nothing but grit and prayer. We paid 3 small bills, a sprained ankle in 0G, a singed panel. A lost hour we would have liked to sleep. We don't break engines, we can teach to hum. After Blackfold, the Hegemony Council issued a caution that no one called law because pride hates names. The caution was enough. Countdown doctrine grew rare where signals could travel. Where it couldn't, it hid in corners. And we kept a lamp in our pocket. "Admiral," Ledger said one quiet watch, "there is an offer from 3 neutral guilds to formalize the Ledger Protocol as an inter-system standard. They will ask you to sign." "Fleet signatures are made of crew," I said. "Okoye. Draft it for them and keep my name small. Tarsavel's name big. Moret Joe's name somewhere everyone reads." "Done," Okoye said. We still fought. We still bled a little. Bled right. We still turned beams when we had to. And once we threw a plate in the path of a spear because all our math collapsed under a human heartbeat, the spear scarred the plate and scribbled a new line into the book. We will never be pure. We will still be good. I don't know how you measure that, except by the weight you carry and how you carry it. At year's end, the Prudence Board moved from warning to rule. It wasn't the victory you write songs for. It was better. They wrote unilateral countdowns as coercive doctrine are prohibited in inspected space. Cooperative audit required where public channels exist. Violations to be tallied, published, and fine funds directed to affected systems. It wasn't everywhere, but everywhere listens. 5 days after the rule, Prefect Carden sent a bottle to the miner's coop. Inside, a slip of paper, I moved a tanker. No signature, no seal. Tarsavel taped it over a clock at Habsea and set the clock 5 minutes slow because she said kindness should make time. In the quiet after, I walked the ship with coffee in one hand and the other on cold rails that remembered heat. The mirror plates had cooled to pewter and wore fingerprints like smudged comet tails. I could hear the slow drip of condensation in a pipe bend and smell the faint sweetness of a pear someone had saved to ripen. We made our own sleep then, and woke to work again, because the world does not stay taught unless you keep teaching. I am not a preacher. I am an admiral with a ledger and a fleet mind who learned to ask why before how. Ledger speaks like a door opening. J. Lin never nods, but he watches for the bend in a throat. Torres plays the boards with hands that remember burns and still choose the heat. Okoye writes lines that make Lo move like water. The crew breathes. The ship hums. The clocks, when they appear, tick softer than they used to. And sometimes they don't appear at all. There's a thought I keep for the end of a day when the numbers balance and the bruises fade to yellow. It's not strategy. It's not even wisdom. It's just a direction to face when you're tired. We do not win by being harder. We win by being clearer. We do not win by louder hours. We win by counted breaths. We do not stand because doctrine breaks. Doctrine breaks because we stand where everyone can see us. The hull vibrates under my palm. A living thing we built to be good. The mirror arrays cool to pewter. The public tally confirms. I open my mouth, and the ship listens like a room full of hands. We will teach until the clocks learn to listen.